The Bonner & Bonner Lecture Series was established in 1992 and was named in honor of Drs. Thomas and Mary Bonner, ESU's first and second African-American faculty members. The series provides a valuable window to diversity, promoting acceptance and understanding on campus and in the community and throughout the state. We are grateful to the former faculty and staff members, Beverly Thompson, Dr. William E. King, Dr. Harry L. Stevens, and Kamara Maxwell, who recognized the need for this lecture series back in the 1990s and was advocates for helping establish it as an important tradition at Emporia State. The Bonner & Bonner Lecture Series has begun being sponsored by the Honors College in 2015 with its focus on civic leadership for the common good. As of 2022, the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion has entered into a partnership with the Honors College to co-sponsor the Bonner & Bonner Lecture Series. Through this collaboration, the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion and the Honors College strive to continue to build on the legacy of the Bonner & Bonner Lecture Series while centering diversity and leadership in their many iterations and investing in the numerous ways leadership can be defined and implemented, as will become evident in Autumn Rose's speech tonight. Our hope is through this collaboration we can continue to move ESU closer to our goal of becoming a model for diversity, equity, and inclusion. Tonight we are delighted to welcome Autumn Rose Williams to Emporia State University as our Bonner & Bonner lecturer. Autumn Rose Williams was born and raised on the Shinnecock Reservation in Southampton, New York. She graduated from Virginia Commonwealth University with a Bachelor of Science in Mass Communication and a minor in business. Being immersed in her culture from birth has given her pride in her Black and Indigenous heritage that is the foundation for the work she does today. When Williams was crowned Miss Teen Shinnecock at the age of 16, it allowed her the opportunity to travel across the United States and learn about the Indigenous experiences outside of her Shinnecock community. Following college, she was crowned Miss Native America USA 2017-18 and began yet another journey to learn more about her people. After completing her reign as Miss Native American USA, Williams was signed to state management as a plus-size model. Plus-size modeling is a way Autumn Rose faces her body images issues head-on and continues her message of self-love and empowerment. Williams most recently worked for the federal government to help champion Indigenous issues related to communities within the lower 48, Alaska, and across the Pacific region, including Hawaii, American Samoa, Guam, and Northern Mariana Islands. Autumn Rose loves being able to service the vast range of Native American communities through her work at the Administration for Native Americans. Williams spreads light, love, knowledge, and positivity through her new formed business, Miss Autumn Rose LLC. She continues to educate and bring awareness to the topics that are near and dear to her, such as Afro-Indigenous culture, social justice awareness, and mental health. Please join me in welcoming Autumn Rose Williams.
How are you guys doing tonight? It's good. Okay, so I want to say Wani Kisuk. Wani Kisuk in my language is good day. I also want to share with you one of my favorite greetings, and that is Akwe. So Akwe, everybody. Yes, and Akwe means I see the light in you. A lot of Indigenous languages are very descriptive, and it's not just enough to say hello, but we want to acknowledge who you are and your presence. So when I say Akwe, I'm saying I see you. I see you for who you are. And that's very, very important. So I want to start off tonight, I do want to start off with a prayer. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for my community and what my people call creator, right? Wani Kisuk, Yichimani Do, Autumn Rose Miskweminanocsqua, Nueswonk Williams, Natatishiawonk, Tabutni for having me here tonight, Tabutni for everyone sitting in these seats. Creator, I ask that you speak through me and allow me to deliver the message that is meant to be heard today, and that everyone is meant to receive what they are meant to hear today. I say Tabutni and I say Aho. And I'm gonna share a song with you to start as well. We are entering March, and in March we have the spring equinox. And in my culture, the springtime is seen as the new year. It's a time of rebirth, and it's a time of newness. And I'm pretty sure you guys are about to go on spring break as well. So I'm going to share this song with you, and the song, what it talks about is it talks about rebirth, newness, and entering a new cycle. So I want to start off fresh and new in this room, and I want to bless you all with a new year as we enter the springtime. Yahweh, aho. When I say aho, that's our form of saying amen or closing a prayer. And how I just introduced myself is a very traditional way in a lot of, I will say, Northeastern traditions on how we do everything. We always are taught to give thanks and to acknowledge the land that we're on. And for today, I want to acknowledge the several tribal nations that Emporia State University resides on, including the Osage, Wyandot, and Pawnee, and Wichita people. It's always important to recognize the indigenous people of this land and give homage to the place that we are on, because we are able to be in this place, we are able to live in this place, so it's important to give thanks for that. All right, how is everybody doing today? Great, good. Thank you for having me today. Autumn Rose Miskweminanocsqua Noesawonk Williams Netishiwank. And that is how I greet myself in my language. So my name is Autumn Rose. My Shinnecock name is Miskweminanocsqua, and that means raspberry star woman. I was born during the raspberry season on a starry night. And I am from the Shinnecock Nation, and oh, it's not there. It is a beautiful place out in the Hamptons, located on Long Island, New York. And I am also the former Miss Native American USA. So I love public speaking, and I'm so happy to be here tonight. It's an interesting time we're living in, right? Interesting era of the 20s. We can start saying that now. It's kind of crazy to say that, though, because the 20s, right? Like, when you think of that, you think roaring 20s. But it's not as bad as the generation, you guys in college right now, Generation Z, referring to the 90s and 80s as the 1900s. Ooh, I was like, ooh, I'm a 90s baby, but I'm still in my 20s. And y'all are calling, I was 1900s. That definitely got me in my feelings. And feelings. That is something that I really do enjoy talking about. Tonight, I'm here to discuss youth advancing social justice, how to be a change maker. And as I thought about that, what does it mean to be a change maker? I kept going back to feelings. Maya Angelou said, people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you make them feel. Many people are hurting, and a lot of this hurt is because of how we treat each other. It's because of what we say, it's because of what we do, and it's because we don't take the time to understand the world beyond our own sphere. I want to share a story with you. So when I was in college, for me, leaving my Shinnecock Reservation and going down to Richmond, Virginia, and going to college was a big culture shock for me. It was the first time that I left. Most of my family lives back home in New York, so it was the first time I left my support system, and I didn't know anybody, and it was so new to me, and there were so many different things that I was learning. And one of the experiences was Halloween. when I was a freshman in college. And because I lived in a community with such a large Indigenous presence, I didn't interact and have the experience of Halloween I did when I went to college. And, you know, I'm all excited, I got my outfit on, I'm with my friends, where Richmond is a city, so with the parties on college, you just go from house to house, just house hop. And we were walking from one house party to the next house party, and there were like a group of kids outside, waiting to go into the next party. And as I walked closer, me and my friends, we noticed that there were a group of guys dressed up as Native warriors. Naturally, I was very upset seeing that. Because my culture wasn't something to be commodified or a costume for a holiday. And as we got closer, I said something to one of the guys. I was like, hey, do you know what you're wearing is really offensive? And the guy got really upset at me, and he started yelling at me, and then the rest of the guys that he was with, they all started making mock Native calls and like doing this and stuff like that to drown out what I was saying. And they were doing that as they walked into the party. And this was one of my first instances of realizing that not only do people have one viewpoint of who Indigenous people are because of how we're portrayed in the media, if we're seen in the media, but there was this complete disregard for who I was and how that experience affected me. And at that time, I didn't know what to do with all those feelings. I didn't know what to do with all those experiences. And I ended up writing this poem. And I'm going to share the poem with you. The poem is entitled My Favorite Holiday. My favorite holiday is Halloween, where I can see the remnants of my ancestry. From the Native warriors to the Pocahontas, I didn't know I had so much family. I must have missed the history lesson that told me my people are dead, that I have become a romanticized image for your entertainment. I'm not human. I'm a mascot, a character, an image. Am I your savage? No, not savage. Because it's all in honoring, aren't I correct? But in honoring someone, you would have to know that they are not dead. If honoring someone, you would have to know that we are still here, living and thriving in our contemporary and traditional ways. If honoring someone, I'd be more than just a costume for your holiday. I'd be honored and respected in a humane way. If honored and respected, you'd see beyond the Hollywood movies, beyond the Johnny Depps that claim untraceable ancestry. If honored and respected, you'd know that we aren't all the same. Our language, culture, and traditions are as versatile as my people's faces. You'd know that we'd want a say in how we were honored, so that maybe one day this could actually be my favorite holiday. When I wrote that poem, it was coming from a place of truly not knowing what to do with all the ignorance I was experiencing while in college. I wanted not only to be heard, understood, and respected, but I wanted my people to be seen beyond the stereotypes we were categorized into. During this time, I was participating in different student-led protests and going to different marches in Washington, D.C. Going to the marches and seeing different social justice leaders and speakers was so inspiring. At that time, I saw the award show, Black Girls Rock. If you guys don't know Black Girls Rock, this is an award show that celebrates and amplifies Black women who are doing impactful and inspirational work within their communities and within their career fields. And when I watched the award show, I was just so inspired. I remember watching it and being like, if that woman could do that, then I can do that too. And in that same moment of deep inspiration, I also questioned, I was like, but where is this representation for Indigenous communities? And at that time, I was Miss Teen Shinnecock, and I remember my mom saying, well, we'll get to go to Gathering of Nations. And Gathering of Nations powwow is one of the biggest powwows in the United States. And if you don't know what a powwow is, it's a gathering of different Indigenous communities that come together to share culture, language, and dance and food. It's a ton of fun. But at Gathering Nations Powwow, they have the Miss Indian World pageant. And I had the opportunity to go and see the pageant. And when I saw the pageant, it was one of those moments where I was really inspired. I saw these Indigenous women in leadership roles who were fighting on the front lines to not only protect their homelands and their environment, but it was also the protection of humanity as a whole for clean drinking water, for the protection of land so we all can have access and live on Mother Earth together. And in that moment, I was like, well, I still don't see someone who looks like me. And it became a thing where it was, if I don't see my representation, then I'm going to become the representation that I know I need. Indians are more worrisome than tornadoes. Kansas Education Commissioner Randy Watson does not understand communities beyond his own experience. He does not understand the importance of words and representation. His remarks resulted in a 30-day suspension without pay while Indigenous communities continue to fight for clean drinking water, protection of land, and our histories and narratives to be told from our voices and points of view. Unless we acknowledge where we are wrong, take steps to change our actions, and challenge systems that oppress groups of people while others receive slaps on the wrist, our society will continue to do harm and create masses of hurt people. I have this experience from school where I realized that the lack of representation led to this experience that deeply hurt me, but also have the experience of seeing Black girls rock and going to Miss Indian World and knowing the importance of representation. It's an important fight that we have to be aware of and we have to continue to speak out against because we have leadership who are speaking words that directly harm Indigenous people. Native American youth have the highest rates of suicide in this country. There's a feeling of not belonging and not being wanted that is reinforced when leadership views us as more problematic and worrisome than a natural disaster. By accepting what we are told without question, without research, without understanding, we lose our ability to be open-minded and see beyond our own worlds. There are a lot of people in leadership roles, professors, politicians, managers, parents, and peers who have an inability to see beyond their own experiences. And in doing that, you're directly creating feelings that create masses of hurt people and people who do not feel heard, seen, or understood. No one is exempt. We are all human. We aren't perfect, but we do have the responsibility to be accountable for ourselves and the types of humans we choose to show up to be each and every day. In a world filled with so much hate, it's up to us to show up in love, to choose to give love. If you want to be a change maker, you have to decide how you want to show up in this world, how you want to be treated, and how you want to treat other people. Take the time to dismantle the narratives you have been told, the expectations that society has placed on you, and ask questions. Build understanding and learn to listen. We got 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. A change maker is someone who knows how to make those around them feel loved, empowered, heard, and understood. A change maker is someone who does not contribute to the hurt of the world. A change maker is someone who can heal the hurt by simply being their true and authentic self. When I became Miss Native American USA, I traveled all around the country to lots of indigenous communities and non-indigenous communities, speaking about the importance of self-love and empowerment. And some of my favorite speaking events were when I got to go and interact firsthand with the kids. And I had this one opportunity to go to Washington State to this camp called the Native Project. And the Native Project was youth from all over the Northwest. I got there, I had my speech perfectly prepared, I get into the room, and it's all these kids in a big circle. And I'm like, they don't want to hear me talk at them for like an hour. I nixed my entire speech, and I just started talking, and I just started connecting with the kids, and then we just started playing games. And out of all of my experiences while I was Miss Native American USA, that was my most favorite one, because I truly got to connect with the youth and understand and listen and hear where they were and where they were coming from. And in that experience, I got to speak with some of the youth who also identified as being Indigenous and Black, and I think that speaking with one of the young ladies was one of the most impactful experiences for me, because she told me that it was the first time that she got to see someone in a national role who looked like her, who had an experience like her, who she could connect to. Connecting with that young lady at that camp was a heartfelt moment, not just for her, I would imagine, but it really, really impacted me. I wanted to be a change maker who can make other people feel seen, because I so desperately wanted to feel a part of this world too. I didn't want to be misunderstood anymore. So when we talk about youth advancing social justice and how you can be a change maker, remember that it starts with self. It starts with understanding of who you are and how you want to show up in this world. It's easy to look in the mirror and point out all of the things that are flawed in you. I mean, we do it all the time. We even see people do it on television shows and on TV. But how often do you look in the mirror and recognize the things about yourself that you love? How often do you look at yourself and speak love into yourself and remind yourself why you are special? How often do you do that? It's important to speak love into yourself, because if you don't do that within yourself, how can you do that for the next person? We cannot ignite change in this world if we don't know who we are and where we need to change. The empowerment of oneself ultimately leads to the empowerment of a nation. And to be a change maker in this world, it starts with you. So, thank you for having me this evening, and I truly look forward to seeing how each and every one of you continues to decide to show up for yourself and become in tune with who you are and how you will bring more love into this world, because we need it. It's with those moments of understanding, it's with those moments of listening, it's with those moments of asking questions that you can truly make those around you feel heard, but have the opportunity to learn. The biggest changes I've ever had in my experiences is when I took the time to listen and learn. So I hope that you guys can do that as well. Tabuni. Can you hear me? Oh, there it goes. We're going to do a question and answer portion now. So if you guys have any questions that you'd like to ask me, please let me know. I don't know how it's going to work.
walk over to you with a mic, and then you can ask Autumn Rose your questions.
I have to be honest, this is my first public speaking event in person since the pandemic, so yeah. A little nervous, but it feels really good to like be on stage and talk to people like I could like be so close to. Oh. Thank you.
Okay, so I have a question. Do you ever have like people say like you're not native enough because you don't look native? That I don't know if that's a very vague question, but I don't know. I get that sometimes from me because I'm native, but I don't look native. So
yeah, it's an interesting thing because like, what does native look like? You know? But I do get that. I do. It's mostly a native. It's when I'm ambiguous, so people don't really know where to place me, right? But when people learn that I am Black, and I'm very proud of being Black, they're always like, well, which one do you choose? And it's like, I don't choose either one. I grew up learning about both of my cultures and both of where I come from. And the indigenous people of Shinnecock in New York are gonna look drastically different than the indigenous people, say, I don't know, in Jamaica, right? They're two totally different regions, and the people look different depending on where you are in the world. So to answer your question, yes. People ask me, do I look native enough? But I've come to the conclusion that I look native enough because I am native, period. There is no one particular way that you are supposed to look depending on what your cultural identity is. I am Shinnecock, I was born and raised Shinnecock, so I look Shinnecock. Thank you for that question.
hello. Oh, that's really loud. Was there ever a moment in your journey that you questioned yourself and like whether you were making a difference and if it was worth like putting yourself out there?
Yes. I think I don't ever stop questioning that. I think that that's part of actually why I keep doing what I do, because I think about going back to feelings, I think about the way certain interactions make me feel, you know? Like, and the reassurance I get from the people I interact with. Public speaking is scary. You know, it takes a lot of courage to get on a stage and just talk. So I think there's a lot of times when I am preparing for these events and going into them, and it's like, well, do I really want to do public speaking? But I really do, I'm passionate about it. I love talking to people. I love connecting with people, and realizing that this is something that gives me fulfillment, I think keeps me going, you know? And it took time to get here. I had to explore. When I was Miss Teen Shinnecock, I hated doing this. Like, I went to powwows, and as a kid going to a powwow, it's fun because you get to go and play with the other kids and dance and all that kind of stuff, but being in that role, I had to sit by the drum, and I had to do all of these regimented things, and I was like, this isn't fun. But when I got older, I learned to appreciate all the things I learned while sitting at the drum and doing all of that stuff. And revisiting it, I fell in love with public speaking, but it wasn't something that I necessarily always wanted to do. It was definitely something that I had to explore all the different options of what I wanted to do and who I wanted to be before I realized, okay, but this gives me fulfillment. And I'm happy doing it, and I do enjoy doing it.
What are your plans for the future? What to continue your mission?
Yeah. I want to do more public speaking and education work. I recently started a new job where a large part of what I'm doing is advocating for Indigenous communities and how people can be more inclusive and communicate with different Indigenous communities. I know what it feels like to not be seen, to not be heard, to not be recognized. You know, the present day erasure of Indigenous community, the present day genocide of Indigenous communities is the erasure of our presence in the news media, in entertainment, in the educational system. So I know how important it is to have that representation for Indigenous youth because we don't see it. And when it is shown, it's in a very stereotyped, caricaturized viewpoint, which has a direct effect on our Indigenous populations, and the statistics show it. So what I plan to do going forward is continue to advocate for my people, so my people are seen, and giving my people an avenue to have their voices be heard, whether that is through awareness through social media, through public speaking, through education in schools. That's what I really enjoy doing, because I am able to connect with people and get them to see me in a different light. I don't walk around in a regalia all day. I like some jeans and a t-shirt and some kicks, you know? But that's not the image you get of Indigenous people when it comes to the media, if you do see us there. So, yeah.
So your passion and like commitment to your culture is inspiring, and I was wondering, like, I'm an education major wanting to go into a school, and I was wondering if like you had that same passion or like what your experience was as a child in school. Like if you were able to express yourself like you are now, do you feel like you were supported? Maybe if you could speak to that.
No, I didn't. The local public school, there was a large Shinnecock presence, so it was, that experience wasn't as, there was a bigger presence. There was teachers there were more students there that were Shinnecock, so there was always somebody advocating for us in that kind of space. But I went to private school in East Hampton. My parents put me in private school once I was in 8th grade, and no, I mean, I was going to private school in the Hamptons. These kids did not understand me on a socioeconomic level, let alone a cultural level. I remember talking to the head of school and asking them why we, why we have Columbus Day off but not Veterans Day. And I forget what the explanation was, but it basically was like, well, nobody's gonna do anything on Columbus Day anyway, so why do you care? And I was like, well, first of all, this holiday is problematic and that needs to be changed, but that was gonna be addressed after my question. And secondly, Veterans Day was really important to me because as Miss Teen Shinnecock, I always had a responsibility to go and do the events and stuff with the local tribes, with the Native American veterans. So I actually needed to be off to go and participate in all of that stuff. And I just remember going and talking to the head of the school, and after that just never wanting to go and talk to the head of school anyway, because I was so dismissed. And it was like, why are you asking questions? You're just supposed to go to school and do what you're told. And I just remember constantly having that feeling in school. Or we learned about European history all the time, right? And I was like, okay, but are we ever gonna learn about American history and Indigenous people and like, and Africans and Black people and like that experience? And they were like, yeah, we're gonna talk about it for this month, so you can bring that up and write an essay on it if you want. But it was like, I don't need to learn about this. I was asking because all we were learning about was European history in the school. And so I didn't have a good experience growing up as in the school system. I think that there needs to be a shift. It's a system, you know? These systems were created, they're oppressive systems, so we have to continuously challenge them and ask these questions on how are we making the change? How are we being more inclusive? Because they were created for a specific reason to teach a certain narrative, and our narratives, it's time that we be included.
Hi.
Hey.
So as a woman of color, being a voice for a community that is constantly stereotyped and represented in a really monochromatic way, how do you deal with that? Like in just media, you see like kind of what you talked about. It's just so generalized and shown from a single lens. Like how do you deal with that?
I think that on a large scale, I've been seeing real change happen when it comes to the media with social media. Social media is really where I've seen indigenous leadership really get recognized, and then seeing large news outlets and different celebrities supporting these activists. So I think the best way to really challenge that is to be intentional about your social media, and it's now is a really good time to do it. You're seeing a lot of people grow and have that experience. If you guys haven't seen on Hulu, you can watch Reservation Dogs, and then on Peacock you can watch oh my gosh, I can't think of it. Rutherford Falls. There we go. Rutherford Falls. These are both TV shows that are produced and directed by indigenous people, and they're telling who we are in our ways and through our voices. And a lot of that was able to happen with people really getting to know who we are through things like TikTok and Instagram and Facebook. So I think that when you don't have a voice is to find the ways in which you can really build a voice and put your voice out there. And I think social media is definitely one way that I've done it myself, and also I've seen other people within my community definitely do it.
Hello. Oh, that is really. I can project. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, that's better. So I actually teach English at the local high school. Do you have any recommendations on like practices I can implement or ways that I can empower my students to, show up with love?
Yeah, the authors that you choose. There are some really great books coming out right now. Heartberry, that's good for English class and science, to be honest, and history. No, not Heartberry. Heartberry is a good book. I would say that's more of a really good book for English. The way she writes it, she has, I think the author is bipolar, and she writes it as so you can kind of get her experience of what it's like going through being bipolar. Braiding Sweetgrass is the one that I wanted to suggest that's good for science, history, and English. I think there are a lot of creatives, indigenous creatives, Black, Latino creative, Asian communities who are really putting out a lot of really good work from their perspectives, from their point of views, and diversifying the books and where you're getting the knowledge definitely is a good way to do it. And you don't have to do it just during that month. Braiding Sweetgrass is such a good book. She not only teaches you about the different Potawatomi culture, stories, traditions, but she also is, I forget what kind of scientist she is. She's a scientist. That's her trade. That's what she does career-wise. So she takes you through the science behind everything. She's an amazing writer, great literature, and then the stories are historical, oral teachings that she's sharing with people. And that's a big thing. As Indigenous people, we do not share our oral teachings outside of our community. So the fact that people are being more comfortable sharing that is big in itself. When I was 16, I went to ceremonies in Wisconsin, to learn some of our oral teachings. And even now, when we go to those lodge ceremonies, there's stories that, like, before I'm taught them, they're like, this is supposed to remain and stay within our community. And she's sharing those. So, yeah.
Hi. So when I was growing up, my best friend was a woman of color, and I constantly saw how she got sexualized by it. So I wanted to know, like, how you dealt with that, because even when she had passed away, she still got constantly sexualized for being a woman of color. So I wanted to know if, like, how you dealt with that, or you, like, deal with that if you, like, see it.
Yeah. That's one of the biggest things that a lot of people talk about when talking about, like, dressing up as Indigenous people as Halloweens with the Pocahontas. It's very, very, very problematic on a lot of different reasons, but Indigenous women have the highest rates of abuse, sexual assault, abduction, and murder in this country. There's thousands, if you guys haven't heard of the missing and murdered Indigenous women, there's thousands of missing and murdered Indigenous women. I think it's like 3 in 5 women, if you're Indigenous, are either sexually assaulted, abducted, or murdered. And the hypersexualization of Indigenous women is something that we definitely face every single day. That's a really good question. It's something that I continuously face, but I don't even know how to answer that question. Trying to be aware, trying to be safe, being clear about my boundaries, buddy system. That's just something that needs to change. But I wish I had a better answer for that question, because it's not something like, it's just being focused on, you have to be focused on your safety and how you walk in this world, until more and more people become aware of not doing that. Yeah, I'm sorry.
How do you balance your intellect and your beauty? So when you walk into a room and you're not dismissed because of your presence, but you want to be able to share your mind. How do you balance that?
I just share my mind. I'm gonna be honest, I just share my mind. I can't change the way I look, but I can sure love it. And I do, and I walk in the room with confidence. You're either gonna accept me for who I am or you're not. And you're gonna understand the words that come out of my mouth or you're not. And a lot of the times, if I'm in a space where I am being judged, where I'm being criticized, then I walk out of that room. And it's a loss for you, not me, because I'm gonna find the spaces where I am welcomed and I am meant to be. That's the best way I do it, because I am beautiful and I am proud of it. And I'm a smart woman and I am proud of it. So, yeah. Thank you.
My question actually goes kind of similar to that. I am a music education major.
Oh, yeah.
And so as part of that, we're encouraged to share music from cultures that are not our own. Mm-hmm. And I am a Caucasian woman in the Midwest. And so I would love to share music from Native cultures in the areas I'm teaching in. Mm-hmm. But I know that I will mess up at different points. So how would you suggest I create an environment where my students from those cultures feel comfortable to come and tell me, to suggest changes in how I'm teaching, to help share their culture in a better light?
Ask them. Ask them. Have those one-on-one sessions where they can open up and they can feel comfortable and they can share that with you. Share your own. Make them feel comfortable by showing them how comfortable you are in sharing your own. Also, networking. Instagram is great. I love networking there. There are a lot of people in their cultures doing a lot of really great work and sharing their own music and dance and things like that, and they would love to have the opportunity to share it with other communities. So reaching out to them, showing appreciation for what they're doing, and asking the questions. I'm gonna tell you something about humans. We love talking about ourselves. We do, so give people the opportunities to talk about themselves, and I'm sure that they would love to share. Yeah.
Ooh, sorry.
Oh, you're fine.
I have a question just based kind of on the conversation we've had this all throughout the day and some things that you've said on stage. So talking about like finding voice through social media and also feeling like you couldn't go to your headmaster and things like that, what are ways that you can give advice to those of us who want to use our voice, and how do we embrace that change or be encouraged to make that change? Like, how do we embrace and like live in that?
I would say explore different ways that you want to share it. With the pandemic, I've been really exploring different creative things. Like, I've been painting. My paintings are really ugly, but like that's not the point of it. It was like I just needed a creative outlet, and my paintings led to me dancing more. And me dancing led to me writing poetry more. It became this like ripple effect of me practicing different things and then figuring out what of those things I really enjoyed. And even if I wasn't the best at it, just doing it over and over and over again made me better at it and made me enjoy it. And through that, it gave me an understanding of how I want to show up in this world and how I want to share the things that I'm passionate about and the things that I've learned. So like the poem that I shared with you guys, I would have never considered myself a poet. I was just I didn't know what to do with all my emotion, and I just started writing. And I was like, oh shoot, this actually sounds good when you put it together this way. So I always encourage people to try new things. No matter what the stigma, or if your friend groups are saying, oh, that's weird, I feel like when people do that, it makes me want to learn about it more. I think having the courage to really step out of your comfort zone and what is normal to you or what you're told you're supposed to do, I think we do that a lot. We accept what we've been told. We accept how we're supposed to live in this world according to what we've seen or what we've been told we're supposed to do. And I think that life is about exploring. Explore something different than what you're used to. Explore and venture out from what you were told. And that can be really scary because you might be the first one to ever do it, or you might be doing it completely alone. But in that journey, you have the ability to learn so much about yourself and learn about how you want to show up and how you want to give your gift to the world. Whether it's singing, whether it's poetry, whether it's dancing, whether it's writing. Whatever it is, how are you going to know if you don't explore? So I think the best way to really do that is to explore how you want to do it and then keep going with what feels right, whether it's accepted or not. You have to choose to accept it, and the community around that will come.
So another question I have, this might be kind of random, but do the colors on your skirt resemble anything?
Oh, no. Okay, so I'll tell you a little bit about what I'm wearing. My brother, I'm one of four. My youngest brother, his name is Nitok. Nitok means my land, and his middle name is Manawises. Manawises means I fear no one or fearless. So a lot of times when I go and speak, I try and wear his clothes because, support my little brother. But also, the meaning of it gives me empowerment. So my shirt says Manawises, and then this is a ribbon skirt. ribbon skirts have a lot of different meanings. This isn't a traditional ribbon skirt because you can see my ankles. Like traditionally, the ribbon skirts would go down to your legs and you wear these in lodge ceremonies. But it's become, in the indigenous community, it's become kind of just a thing all indigenous people can really participate in. So I wore this to pay homage to my indigenous roots and to support my brother. But thank you for asking. Sometimes the colors do have meanings. But this one is just, I just wanted as many colors as possible so I could wear it with whatever. Oh, thank you guys so much for having me tonight, and thank you for all of your questions. If you guys have any more, feel free. I think we're having a reception after
Yes,
this.
so there will be cookies and things out here in front. So if you want to hang out and just talk to Autumn a little bit, or hang out and talk to each other, there will be some refreshments, and you can do that. So thank you in being here today, and again, Autumn, thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you guys.